My name's Mike Boeckman from St. Louis, Missouri. I was born in North St. Louis, Walnut Park area. Went to a Catholic grade school, which was a lot of fun. The oldest is Danny, second oldest is Kathy, next one is Johnny, and then me, then Mark, and Donald, and Victor. 7 kids of Margaret and Marvin Boeckman. My mom was a waitress for years. My dad was an electrician. Very loud, busy, with 7 kids. 3 bedrooms upstairs, 2-story house, and 1 add-on bedroom on the back of the house, 1 bathroom. So we had to share a lot. Well, when I was in kindergarten, I got in trouble in class, and they called the head nun, the principal, and she was pretty old. She took me out in the hall and started hitting me, except she was so old it didn't hurt. But she was right in my face, and her breath smelled like chicken noodle soup. So to get her to stop hitting me, I started saying, ow, real loud. And then she stopped hitting me and said, you'll get some more of this if you do it again. I said, okay. And all I was thinking was some more of the chicken noodle soup breath. So I never did it again. A nun that hit me across the fingers, I had to go up to her desk, she hits me across the fingers. She said, now go sit down. As I turned, I must have said something, because she picked up the big wooden chalkboard compass and hit me across the back with it and broke it in half. Told me I had to take it home and fix it. Except you gotta imagine, this was in 1st grade, and all I told her, I said, I don't know how to fix that. So I got the janitor to fix it. I do remember when me and my brother Johnny got us little kids, got a fireman helmet with a light on it. So we went in the closet where we can use the lights and shut the door, except the light wouldn't work. So instead of carrying the helmets out into the bedroom to fix them, Johnny went and got some matches so we can light them in the closet and see what we were doing. My pants caught on fire. Now I got a big scar on the side of my leg as my mom was trying to beat the fire out. It wasn't the brightest move we ever made. Pretty young, I used to have nightmares pretty bad. So I was just, middle of the night, my mom would find me out in the hall trying to holler, but nothing would come out. That was probably up until I was 8 or 9 years old. I don't know what the nightmares are for, but they eventually went away. You gotta consider the fact that the old man used to imbibe a little bit. Actually quite a bit. He had his own personality. After imbibing a little bit, that's when he would come home and want to, I guess, discipline you. So we found ways of escape out of the house. Out the back, upstairs, window across the roof. Scramble down the screen door and shoot up the alley. But my mom, she just throws stuff at you because she couldn't catch you. Got hit with a belt a few times. You just crawled up and protect everything that was necessary. I grew up with bad behavior, so it was, we just dealt with it. We just went on. We just determined at a very young age how not to be. He would pull up in front of the house and we'd scramble because you didn't know how he was going to be when he got home. You knew he was out drinking. So you jump in bed and act like you've been sleeping for hours. You know, a lot of times he would come home, and if he got you, he'd sit there and tell you how he hated thieves and liars. And my mom would be at work because she was a waitress, so she wouldn't get home till after the restaurant closed, depending on where she was working. And my dad did that one night, and then he pulled his pocket knife out on me. Said that he'd rather see me dead than doing drugs, which at the time I was too young to even know what drugs were. But one of my brothers told my mom that when she got home, and she started hollering at him. And he looked over at me and he said, "I didn't pull no knife on you, did I?" And at that point, that's when I blew up. I said, "You know, he's asking us to go outside with you and fight you." I said, "Let's go." So we went outside, and I hit him one time, and he went down on the ground, and I ran down on the sidewalk. He said, "Come on back here, boy." I said, "No, I done knocked you down once. I don't have to do it again." But I didn't want to hit him no more. So I just moseyed on up the street for the night. I just remember once when he was fighting with my mom, and Danny went downstairs, my oldest brother. Before he could even say anything, my dad walked by him and just side punched him. Boom! He just kept walking. His mom died when he was real young. He had a stepmother he didn't get along with real great. When World War II, he went in the Navy. He lied about his age, so he went in when he was 15. You know, he was on a ship that got bombed, and he went through a lot. I'm sure he had PTSD. Didn't exist then, but I'm sure. Well, the alcohol thing back then was just a gimme. Everybody drank. Everybody he knew. All his cousins, friends, everybody. Well, I was actually asked to leave elementary school in the 8th grade. I went to night school to finish 8th grade. I guess I didn't get along with the rules very well. Just everyday stuff, acting up in class. I guess I had a problem with authority. Probably because I got the wrong kind of authority at home. When I was younger, my mom took me to go check the place out. It was a boys' home. And I just told her off on the side that they'd never be able to keep me in here. I said, "I'll be out of here the first day." We left there and never returned. Went to night school at high school for a month or so, but by the time I turned 17, and that's when I joined the Marine Corps. Kind of turned your head around. You got in boot camp. The first day, when the DIs came in the squad bay where they had all of us, and doing all that screaming and hollering and calling you names you never heard of before, I had to choke myself, keep from laughing out loud. I thought that's the nuttiest thing I ever seen in my life. I had some bad time when I was in the Marines. That means I was AWOL for a while, which was bad time. That's time you have to make up once you go back. And they gave me a choice of either making it up, which was quite a few months, or taking a discharge. So I took the discharge. Undesirable discharge. And being smarter, I probably would have just made up the time, but I was still a teenager. Stupid. At the time, felt nothing. It started kind of actually doing the opposite of what I determined when I was younger not to do. A lot of drinking and fighting. Drinking in a bar with a buddy, and I sat at the bar and he was shooting pool with a bunch of people. The bar was closing, so just went walking out the side door, and all I know is I was surrounded by a bunch of guys. The guys my buddy was shooting pool with. And I didn't know what the deal, didn't even know these people, but I knew it was coming down. And I walked out with a bottle of beer in my hand. So I just picked the biggest guy and smacked him upside the head with the beer bottle. Then everybody jumped us. They knocked me down, they kept punching, and one guy kept kicking me, except I was too drunk, they couldn't hurt me. I knew I'd feel it in the morning, but they couldn't hurt me. And I was determined to get the guy that kept kicking me, because he would kick me and then run out of reach. Instead of blocking his kick, I let him kick me, and I grabbed him, reached up and grabbed him between the legs and squeezed it as hard as I could. And he screamed like a little schoolgirl, but he didn't kick me anymore. Then the cops finally came, and they tried to say that I started the fight. And I looked at the cop, I looked at all them guys, there was only 2 of us, about 10 of them. And I turned to the big guy that I hit with the bottle, and I said, "Why don't me and you go behind that building there, and we can just settle the whole thing right there." And he looked at the cop, and the cop looked at him, just looking at him, didn't say anything. And I said, now we know where we stand, right? That was it. Everybody went home. My dad, he passed away. He passed away in the hospital. He shot himself with a shotgun. My brother Victor found him. He was still alive. And Victor called me, so I ran home before anybody got there. I called 911. But there was a party, swim party going on next door, and happened to be a believer over there. And he came over there and prayed over him. But when my dad did that, he, of course, he'd been drinking a few days straight. So the alcohol played a role in it all the way up to the end. That's how people's thinking gets screwed up. You know, he's always been a Catholic, but you did nothing, didn't go to church, you just called yourself a Catholic. He started cussing at the guy. Said, I want a priest. And the guy calmly said, well, that's fine, you can have a priest, but he still prayed over him. Actually, I wanted to help him along. Because even not dealing with it before, I knew that trying to kill yourself is self-serving. That means any feelings or anything anybody else has, you completely ignore. And you're just so far into yourself that you just do what you want. I was mad. And then he does it to where my youngest brother Victor would come in and find him like that. He lived for a couple of days. But in the hospital, he got the priest he wanted. I was mad that he shot himself, eventually killed him, and mad that what it did to my younger brothers at the time. I had to explain to them that it was just the alcohol. That's all it was the alcohol. I was 20 years old. Me and another guy built a dune buggy. We got it all welded up. We got it running real good. Except we didn't work on the brakes yet. But I had to go out and try it. So we took it down to the bottoms, opened it up. Me and another guy got in there. I was driving. We opened it up and got to a point in the dirt road to where you had to turn or go down and straight down into a big ravine. So I hung a hard right, and it caught a dried up tractor rut and rolled. And didn't realize that I grabbed the roll bar to hold on instead of holding on to the steering wheel. So it rolled a couple times and stopped upside down. And we both climbed out laughing. Then went to throw the dune buggy back up on its wheels and realized my hand wouldn't work. That's when I looked down, and it was all full of mud and dirt, grass. So I couldn't see nothing, but I just knew my hand didn't work. And then finally it started bleeding, and that's when I knew there was a problem. That's when the hurt set in, when it started bleeding. You know, they did surgery on it, tried saving it, but it didn't work. After a couple days, it got all gangrene, and so they said it had to come off. Their suggestion at the time was to take everything off and give me some kind of contraption, and I didn't understand one way or the other. I just said no. I asked them, I said, is the rest of it all right? And they said yes, and I said, well, no, I don't want you to cut it off. Well, they put me in a room with 3 other people. The old black man right across the room from me, he was pretty old and he was dying. There was a black kid off to my right, and he was in there because he did something to his knee. And there was a guy right next to me on a heart machine that was keeping him alive. And I was laying there thinking, wondering what am I going to do, because at the time I was a truck mechanic. And the guy on the heart machine, his machine kept beeping. Eh, eh, eh. That's what it's supposed to do. Well, the kid over there with the bad knee, he got mad and hollered at the guy to turn that machine off because it's keeping him awake. And I remember looking up at him and seeing how serious he was. And I just started laughing from the stupidity of what he was asking the man to do. The machine keeping him alive because he couldn't sleep. And from that point on, I didn't know what I was going to do, but it didn't matter. And that man across from me, he died that night. It's like, the heck, you lost a few fingers. Look at what's going on around you. No, I was just determined to do whatever I wanted to do. I had a lot of people over the years wanting to do certain things for me, or actually sometimes try to tell me you can't do that. I would ignore them. Just do whatever I wanted to do. You just go on with it. You don't even become an issue. The only bummer I had at the beginning is being left-handed before. You did everything with your left hand. I kept walking in rooms and turning on a switch and missing. But you got to consider I wasn't saved yet. So being left-handed before, I'd get in fights and you'd have to use your right hand. But not giving it a thought, you still set up the same way, and I would still punch people with my hand. It might even hurt a little worse because of being bony there. It might not have felt too good. Working, drinking, and carousing. That was it. Close down the bars every night. Get up and go to work. Do the same thing again. I always felt that the way I led my life up to that point, I was a goner anyway. The reason is because even them years going through Catholic school, and I was even a altar boy, but never understood the message. Never did get it. So that's why I just thought everything I did in my life up to that point, I'm done. So why bother? Working construction at a church and constantly being asked by the guy I worked for to come to the service here, and I would tell him I would, and I never would. But then that's where I met Kelly. She was working there. And I kept trying to get her to go out with me, just to go to dinner. And she said, well, if you go to service, I'll go out to dinner with you. I said, all right. Well, we went out to dinner first on a Friday night. And Saturday night, I showed up to service just so I wouldn't be lying to her. Just showed up there to get it over with. The youth pastor, who was Pastor Jeff, gave an altar call. First had people raise their hands. I raised my hand and had people stand up, and I stood up. He asked people to come down forward. And I scooted out in the aisle and I started moving forward, and I felt that somebody was walking right next to me, talking in my ear, telling me, turn around and leave. This is a cult. These are a bunch of crazy people. All the way down the aisle. I mean, audible. And there was nobody there. But everything I can phantom in my head was telling me, turn around and get the heck up out of there. But kept walking. And that night was peace. First time in my life I had peace. When I understood the message that no matter what you did, you're forgiven. After you accept Jesus, they send you back in a room to talk to somebody so they can explain what you just did. And the man, I wouldn't let him get his words out of his mouth. I just kept asking him, let me get this straight. Anything I ever did in my life, just forgive it. He said, yeah. And then he wanted to give me his spiel, and I wouldn't let him. And I said, now I want you to tell me again. I want to fully understand this. And I never did let him say whatever he planned on saying to me. That's all I wanted to know. And I went home that night and I had peace. First time. That's when you realize you had absolutely no stinking worry in the world. All that worry and crap out there didn't mean nothing. The following night, I went back to the same bar I bummed out in. Didn't drink one beer, and I shared with the guys I drank with. I don't know whatever happened to them guys. I believe that's all I was supposed to do, because I never went back. It was God. It was time. He was pulling me forward. Working around that church, I had a lot of people asking me. I had a girl working under me, a laborer, kept putting sticky notes in my car with scriptures on them. And I threatened to have her arrested for trespassing if she got in my car again after the third or fourth time. And I said, next time I'm calling the police, you're going to jail. You get in my car again. So instead of a sticky note, she put the whole Bible in there on my seat. And I just threw the Bible in the back seat and shook my head. So I had plenty of chances. And I know there was a lot of people there praying. Before I got saved, I walked through the nursery at the church and heard a bunch of people in one of the rooms. And it just sounded like a bunch of foreigners. So when I come out of there, who do I run into? But Kelly. And I asked her, I said, I just came through the nursery. There's a bunch of people in one of the rooms with the doors shut, a bunch of foreigners, and they're all talking at one time. Nobody will shut up and listen to the other one. And her response was, she started laughing and walked away from me. But I had no idea what they were doing. They were in there praying in tongues. Intercessory prayer. And I thought it was a bunch of foreigners just gabbing. But even if she would have told me at the time, I wouldn't have understood. I did that at home in my living room. I had that little pamphlet book, Kenneth Hagin, Tongues. And I read through that book, and I started praying in tongues. It was probably about 9 o'clock at night. And I realized it was getting light outside. Looked at the clock, and I had to go to work. And it seemed like 20 minutes maybe. It was all night. But that night, when I went to sleep, I had one of them that I never had in years, one of them nightmares. And I woke myself up screaming, Jesus. And it came out. Wasn't stifled. And never had another one in my life. It was just, who you gonna holler for when you're in distress? Who you gonna scream for? There's only one name, Jesus. You find out it's the only place you're gonna get an answer. No, I still had my own personality. That friend thing with a bunch of strangers wasn't happening right off the bat. But I did start going to church, but I still did my own thing. That's when I found out God ain't there to change your personality. He wants everybody to be individuals. He don't want a bunch of drones running around hollering to him. He might fix a few quirks in your personality. Still working on me a little bit, but I became friendly with the ones I need to be friendly with. As Christians, like any other walk of life, some of them are Christians on Sunday, not so much on Monday. Well, ended up having a little more money in my pocket because I didn't visit the bars every night like It was actually, you think at the time, that was pretty substantial. But the guy I worked for when I was a laborer before I got saved, he put up with a lot from me. I would never miss work. I'd always show up from work. Doesn't matter if I got an hour's sleep, I still showed up. But the mornings, first couple hours till you sweated it out, might not have been the best work. Right after the flood, '93, down in Chesterfield Valley. I was helping with the flood anyway. So I just approached Pastor Jeff and told him that I feel I should be working for him. Ultimately, he agreed. Well, after the flood was over, I was working maintenance at the church for quite a few years, till Katrina hit down south. Went on a lot of Service International trips, but that was permanently Service International from that point on. But that's where I felt like I should be. Doing the disaster relief for Service International, being a nonprofit, we're able to go into areas where people have been hit with a disaster had never been through a disaster before. They had absolutely no idea what to do, which way to turn. And we're able to walk up, offer them help, completely free of charge. Not looking in any way to get in their pocket. We just want to help them to return to some type of life they had before. But it turns out, on a normal basis, they didn't see it at the time, but their lives would be better than they were before because of all the different volunteers that would come on these trips. Had different skill sets, and some of them, their skill set is just take care of the homeowner. And that's just as important as the guy swinging the hammer. One thing I try to tell people, that the first day is, did you ever have stuff in your house you wish was different? I said, now you get to make it different because you're going to rebuild. And a lot of them, rebuilding was the farthest thing from their mind because they couldn't see how. And we're able to say, we're going to help you. We're going to help you do it. And a lot of people would come to God through what we do. And actually, we really like helping people. That's really the real reason why we do it. Instead of pointing to ourselves, we point to God. Depending on the size of the disaster, a lot of times you're either using a shovel, scooping out muck like everybody else, or you're a team leader, or you're a group leader. You change. From disaster to disaster, sometimes from day to day, you just change. You do whatever's called to do. Each situation is different. And being a nonprofit, we have to operate by whatever funds come in from people or different organizations. And we'll take a house as far as we can afford to take a house. Some houses more than others, especially the people that are living in a house. The needs are different for different families. We'd like to do full bore for every single person we meet, but it isn't possible sometimes. The one I remember a lot is down in Mississippi, a lady just finished redecorating her home when she was flooded. The whole house had to be gutted. It was a single lady. She was actually a male person. And we were there on a Saturday cleaning out her house, gutting it out. And she was sitting on a cooler out in front smoking a cigarette. And we were done for the day. I sent all the volunteers back to camp, and I told her, I said, we'll be back Monday. And the ladies will pack up all your trinkets and stuff, wrap them up real good so nothing gets broke. And we'll move the stuff out of the way so the house can be rebuilt. And she just automatically was answering me, yes, thank you, thank you. Actually, no life in her eyes. And I said, okay, I'll see you Monday. Well, she lived right behind a church that we were helping too. And I got a call Sunday morning. They were going to try to have service at that church when I come up there with the Bobcat and clean their parking lot so they could have parking. So I went up there and did that early Sunday morning, took a buzz through the neighborhood and seen that lady sitting out in front of her house on that cooler. So I stopped to talk to her for a minute. And I just repeated the same thing I told her the day before. We'll be here tomorrow. We'll help you out. We'll do this, do that. Same answers. And I turned and walked halfway down her sidewalk and realized the exact same look in her eyes. So I turned around and went and sat down with her and had a smoke with her and talked to her for about a half hour. Until she finally was realizing what I was saying. She had no idea. What I said to her twice, she had no idea what I even said. Until I sat down there and talked to her for a while. She started coming to life. And looking forward till tomorrow, when them ladies would show up and take care of all of her stuff, all of her things that she had in there. And never seen that look in that lady's eyes again, that lost look. She was all right from then on. When my brother Mark got saved, he started seeking because I got saved. And he knew that if a scrum bum like me could do it, he could do it. And I didn't know that until he spoke at a men's breakfast And somebody I knew was at that breakfast, and he told me what Mark said. That was probably the best thing. I said, Mark eventually got saved because out of his words that I got saved. And he knew if God could deal with me, he could deal with anybody. My brother Donald and his wife came to our church, and it wasn't until they came one time that Joyce Meyer was speaking, and they responded to that. So just because you can tell somebody about God, tell somebody about Jesus, don't demand response from people. Jesus will get his response down the road. Might be tomorrow, through somebody else, might be a week. But you just do your part and move on. It turns out with Mark, my part was just doing what I was supposed to do. Receiving Jesus. I didn't even have to preach to him. I didn't have to explain nothing to him. He just seen the change in my life. So to Mark, I was preaching without saying a word. You know, Johnny, till he died, he went to a Catholic church. But in hanging out with him and talking with him, he was saved. It doesn't matter what building you walk in. It could be a Catholic building, it could be anything. Doesn't matter. I just know growing up, I didn't get nothing much out of the Catholic religion. Matter of fact, just the opposite. I pushed them and their beliefs away. When she was at our house, dying, that's when I knew she was saved. She was going to heaven. Flat out asked her, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe Jesus died for you? And she sincerely said yes to everything. So there's no getting around it. And it wasn't like she was a person thinking in the state she was in, she was pulling out of something. She knew she was dying. She knew it. God only needed one night to change my life. The night that I accepted Jesus. And the rest of it is on you. How much you're going to allow Jesus in. Not just believe in him, but how much you're going to let him in. You're just allowing it to happen through Jesus. You can decide anything you want. Decisions go by the wayside. You know what I mean? But when you decide to ask Jesus in your heart, that's when you just got to keep grabbing Jesus. You don't even have to worry about what you decided. You just keep letting Jesus come in. He'll do all the molding and changing that needs to be done. And like I said, he don't want to take away anybody's personality. He likes you just the way you are. And it isn't he's teaching you good from bad, right from wrong. He's just teaching you to accept more of Jesus. That's it.